Hello and welcome to Nithrania YouTube channel. You're watching another episode of the Game in a Nutshell series designed for explaining the board game rules. My name is Branislav Berec, and in this video we're going to learn how to play the Pirate Republic Africa Gambit, a game designed by Tom Butler, published by Greenfeed Games, who have also sponsored the video. And before we start, let me say that all the components in this video are prototype components. Even though the quality of these components is already pretty solid, it's a top-notch quality, including the plastic ships. They're very solid. The game is coming to crowdfunding campaign. You can find the link to the campaign in the description of the video, and let's get started. To set the game up, unfold the game board and place it in the middle of the table within the reach of all players. Then prepare the cards. First of all, select a global mission. If you play the campaign, start with the first campaign card, which you find in the envelope number 1. Otherwise, select any global mission, and note that the global mission card may alter the instruction for the setup and also change the objective and outcome of the game. In this example, we have one NPC pirate token, which will be placed on the map, specifically in Williamsburg, which is this territory. Then shuffle the deck of Tidings card and place the deck in this space. Shuffle the deck of treasure cards and personal mission cards and place them face down next to the game board. Then shuffle the deck of crew cards. Those are cards with this symbol in the top right hand corner with the blue flag. And reveal 3 cards face up, and do the same with these elite cards. They have the red flag or red symbol in the top left hand corner. Shuffle all these land tokens and place them face down next to the game board, but before you do that, locate these 8 tokens. Those are forts owned by a specific nation, British, Dutch, French, and so on. And these tokens are placed on these kind of spaces with a corresponding flag. Then shuffle these level reward tokens face down, randomly choose 5 of them and place them face up on the corresponding spaces on the game board. Now prepare the enemy stacks. Take all the naval ships, those are these tokens with the blue background, shuffle them face down, randomly choose 18 of them and place the stack on this space with the matching icon. Then shuffle these red tokens, they represent pirate hunters, randomly choose 7 of them and place them in this space, and the last one in this space. Then shuffle these slave ships and treasure fleets and place the stacks on the spaces with the matching icons. Then take all the remaining naval ships, all the merchant ships and pirate ships, shuffle them face down and place them somewhere next to the game board to create a ship token supply. Now draw the Tidings card and place a random ship token from the ship token supply in the territory shown on the Tidings card. Here we have Charlestown, and place it in that territory face down. Territory is an area on the map bound with these black lines. And then place another random ship to each adjacent territory. Again, take the ship tokens from the ship token supply and place them in those adjacent territories. Then repeat the whole process, draw another Tidings card, locate the territory shown on the card and place the random ship tokens in that territory and also all the adjacent territories. And note that you may never place a token in Nassau territory, that's where the player's ships will start. And each territory can only contain maximum 1 ship token. Continue doing this until you place 22 ship tokens on the map. And when you place the 22nd token, and there are still some territories adjacent to the shown territory which don't have the ship tokens, continue drawing additional ship tokens from the supply until all those adjacent territories have 1 enemy ship token. Then take the drawn Tidings card and shuffle them back into the Tidings deck. Then each player chooses a pirate and takes the pirate board, 12 starting cards with the matching symbol as shown on the pirate board, 10 pirate markers, 3 of them are placed in the 0 space of each of these statistics tracks, Next one is placed on the space 3 on the movement track. And the last one on the 0 space of this scoring track, which is a swagger track. Keep the remaining 5 pirate markers near your pirate board, you will need them during the game. Then take 2 random personal mission cards, look at them, choose one of them to keep, and the other is shuffled back into the personal mission cards. Then the player who most recently enjoyed a pirate movie or a pirate book takes the commander token, which is a first player token, and then take the miniature corresponding to your pirate and place it either in Nassau, which is a recommended territory for your first game, or in any neutral land site. That's the site with this flag with skull and crossbones. Shuffle the deck of your starting cards, place it in the corresponding area of your pirate board. This is your pirate deck. And then the commander chooses one unclaimed deck of pirate cards, the starting cards. Shuffle the deck and place it next to the game board face down. It is now called the Captain's Den. This is called the Crew's Den, and this is called the Elite's Den. Finally, the commander and only the commander may flip any ship tokens in all adjacent territory to the starting territory of that player. So flip those ship tokens face up, and that's the end of the setup. The Pirate Republic Africa Gambit is a thematic deck building sandbox adventure game set in the early 18th century, where each player takes on the role of a historical pirate. Each player's goal is to achieve the greatest amount of swagger, those are victory points, and you gain that swagger from combat against these imperialist powers and from completing various missions. The game is played in rounds, and each round has 3 phases. The first phase is the Tidings phase, in which the Tidings card is put into play. Players draw cards into their hand up to their hand limit, and if in play, the NPC tokens take their turn. Then during the action phase, players take turns, starting with the first player with the commander and then continuing clockwise. And on your turn, you will first resolve the effect of this Tidings Die and then perform actions with your cards. There are quite a few actions you can take. You can move on the map, scout these face down tokens, establish a pirate haven if you want to, acquire new elite cards or crew cards or captain cards, complete personal missions, and of course combat enemy ships, enemy pirates, enemy forts, and so on, or you may decide to rest. Each time you take an action with your card, the card is put into your play area. Some cards may give you effect which lasts until the end of your turn. And when you have no more cards available, no more cards in hand, the cards are discarded into your discard pile, and then it's the next player's turn in a clockwise direction. On your next turn again, you will draw new cards into your hand, and once you need to draw a card from your draw deck and there is no card available, the end of the round is triggered. Each remaining player gets one more turn, and then the action phase is over. Then in the cleanup phase, you prepare the game for the next round. Your player area will also reset. All the cards will go back to your pirate deck. And then if the game is not finished, you will continue with the next round. The end of the game is triggered when any player reaches 120 swagger points or victory points, or when any player completes both the public goal, which means that player completes that global mission, and at least one of their personal missions. Then all players, including the one who triggered the end of the game, will get one more turn, and then the player with the most swagger, most victory points, is the winner. So the first phase of each round is the Tidings phase. In this phase, all players can simultaneously draw cards from their pirate deck. Those cards are considered to be in your hand, however this is public information, that's why the cards are laid out in front of you so that everyone can see your cards. At the start of the game the hand limit is 4 cards, later in the game some game effects may increase that limit. Then the commander will draw the top card from the Tidings deck and read the event text on the card. The card will remain in effect for the rest of the entire round for all players. The effect on the Tiding card overrides all the rules in the game. This is the highest priority effect in the game. Each Tidings card has a flag in both top corners of the card, and that flag indicates which nation has issued a letter of marque to all players. That means that players are neutral towards that nation during that particular round. All the game components of that nation, for example ships or forts, are passive and they will not attack players when players enter the area with those components. However, if any player intentionally decides to attack such fort or a ship, then the letter of marque for that player will not apply any longer. By the way, if the Tidings deck is empty, reshuffle the discard pile and create a new pile of Tidings cards. Beginning with the second round and on all following rounds, and only in a campaign mode, if you have any NPC tokens, the non-player character tokens, they will now move. Each NPC token moves 3 spaces towards the nearest player. If 2 players are the same distance away from the NPC token, then the NPC moves towards the player with the most victory points, most swagger, and if still tied, the commander chooses. The NPC always moves in the shortest direct path to the player and ignores any special movement requirements on the way. So even though moving through this area requires additional movement points for NPC, it is still considered as one move. Then, once the NPC token reaches the territory with the player, it stops the movement and that player will have to combat that NPC at the start of their turn. The NPC will have the initiative. I'll explain that later during the combat chapter. Then, during the action phase, players take turns starting with the commander, with the first player, and then continuing clockwise. And on your turn, you have to first resolve the Tidings Die, then play actions with your cards. As you play cards, they will be placed in your play area, and then at the end of the turn, you will discard the cards, redraw back to your hand limit, and then it's the next player's turn. Now, let me go through these steps in more detail. The first thing on each of your turn is to resolve the Tidings Die. Roll the die and resolve the effect. When you roll +1, -1 or +2, add or subtract the number from your movement allowance. At the start of the game your movement is 3, so in this example you would increase that number to 5. When the die result is this white lookout, move the closest naval ship or a pirate hunter ship into your territory. If multiple tokens are the same distance away to your territory, then you choose which one to move, and if there is no naval ship or pirate hunter ship token face up anywhere on the map, then simply draw a new random token from the supply and place it into your territory. Then you can either immediately engage in combat with that token, in which case the token will have the initiative, or you can spend 1 movement point and move to any adjacent territory. Each territory has a stacking limit of maximum 2 enemy ship tokens, and if you roll the white lookout and move any enemy ship token to your territory, if there are more than 2 enemy ship tokens in that territory, you can move one of those tokens to adjacent territory without violating that stacking limit, as long as that territory is not occupied by any other player. When you roll this red lookout, it has the same effect as the white lookout. With one exception, you may not move to adjacent territory, you simply must combat that token. Then, when you roll this symbol, it indicates the treasure fleet or the slave ship. If there are no treasure fleets, either on this silver or the gold treasure fleet route, then add 1 treasure fleet token and 1 treasure fleet miniature to the start of the treasure fleet route in Cartagena. If any treasure fleet is already on the map, simply move it 1 space forward, following the route. If it is on the last space of the silver route, move it to the first space of the gold route and add one additional treasure token to that fleet. And if it's on the last space and it has to move, return the miniature back to the general supply and return the treasure fleet tokens to the bottom of the treasure fleet stack. Do not place a new ship to the start of the route. Then repeat the same for the slave ship route. If there is no slave ship on the map, take the slave ship token and place it to the start of the route at Cape Coast Castle and place the slave ship miniature on that token. If there is any ship on the route, simply move it one space forward and so on. Note that you can have both the treasure fleet and the slave ship on the map at the same time. Then after resolving the Tidings Die, proceed to performing actions. Most actions will require the playing of cards in order to take the effect. Each card contains a lot of icons. You can find a description of all those icons on the reference card. And before explaining each action in more detail, let me first explain how to play the card. Cards are played from your hand, so from the display somewhere in front of you, into your play area, which is a slightly different area in front of you. Remember, the cards that are sort of in your hand are public information and are laid out face up so that everyone can see them. And once you play a card, you can either take the basic effect or the advanced effect, which is at the bottom of the card. You can take the basic effect of the card without any additional cost. If you want to take the advanced or improved effect, you have to pay one reputation token. Reputation tokens are these type of tokens, so you have to have them in your personal supply and spend them, so return them back to the general supply, and then you can take that improved effect of the card. Now, these symbols mean that you can take first or the second or the third action. So you may not take all of them, just one of those three actions. If you have the slash symbol and the plus symbol as well, the slash symbol is more important. So in this example, you may either take this 3 strike fear effect or 3 close combat plus 2 movement. So you can either take the effect on the left side of the slash or the effect on the right side of that slash. And by the way, anytime you acquire a new card, it is always placed directly into your discard pile. So let's take a look at the first action available to you, and it's the move action. At the start of each turn, you have 3 movement points. These movement points can be increased or decreased by the Tidings Die's roll, or you can play a card with this symbol, this blue one, it's movement. Here we have the blue symbol with number 1, which means you can increase your movement points by 1. Later in the game, when you upgrade your ship, you can have more movement points available at the start of each of your turns. The maximum number of movement points available is 10. You can never have more than 10 movement points for your movement action. Some card effects may increase that movement temporarily during the combat, but if you don't spend those movement points during the combat, your maximum available points for the movement action is always 10. Now, moving from one seaway territory to another costs 1 movement point. If you want to move from the sea to the land, this is for free, so you don't have to spend any movement points. Then, exploring the land areas, which means you would sort of move from the ship to the land, is free. You don't have to spend any movement points. There's also no additional cost in case you want to combat those land sites. In case you want to move from this area to this territory, as this symbol indicates, it costs additional 2 movement points, so this would be 3 movement points. And similarly, if you want to move to this territory, it also costs additional 2 movement points, so 1 plus 2, that would be 3. On the other hand, if you want to move back from this territory to this one, it costs additional 4 movement points, and the same applies here as well. That's because you sail against the ocean currents and against the wind. Then when you enter a territory with an enemy ship token, flip it face up if it's not already, and then if it's an aggressive token, you must combat it immediately. If it's a passive token, you may combat it. Passive tokens are only treasure fleets, slave ships, or a nation with the letter of marquee. In our example, it was a Portuguese nation. So if you enter a territory with such a ship, then it's a passive token, which means you don't have to combat it. But if you want, you can. In that case, you would lose that letter of marquee of that nation. Anytime you move onto an imperialist held land site without scouting that token first, flip it face up and immediately start a combat similar to starting a combat against aggressive tokens. I will explain combat in more detail later in the video in a separate chapter. As I said, the stacking limit of each territory is 2 enemy ships. Treasure fleets, slave ships and NPCs don't count to that limit. And also, each territory can hold any number of players. And if there is any other enemy ship entering that territory and it exceeds that stacking limit, the active player moves that token to any adjacent territory of their choice so that it doesn't exceed that stacking limit again. Each land site can hold maximum 1 land token and again any number of players. Every time you use the movement point, reduce the movement points on your pirate board by 1. If you reached 0, then you may no longer move during that turn. With the scout action, you may reveal the nearby land token or the ship token without combating it. If you are in a territory held by imperialist nation, so the territory with the imperialist nation flag, you may either spend 1 reputation or instead you may spend 3 movement points and scout that land token. To do that, randomly draw a land token from the land token supply and place it face up in that territory. You may not scout neutral spaces, you may not scout Nassau, and obviously not the land tokens which are already face up. Similarly, for 1 reputation or 3 movement points, you can scout the nearby ship token, a token which is in the territory adjacent to your current territory, and when you do, flip it face up. Then, as an action, you may initiate a combat against the land token in the same territory, or at any time when you are in the territory with any aggressive ship token. Combat is one of the most important actions in the game, and I will explain the entire combat in a separate chapter later in the video. If you are in a territory with an unoccupied neutral land site, that's the land site with this skull and crossbones symbol, you may spend 1 reputation and establish your pirate haven on that site. To do that, take one of your pirate markers and place it on that site indicated that it's your pirate haven. You can only have 1 pirate haven at any time. If you establish a new one somewhere else, move your marker to the new site. When you establish the pirate haven, it immediately ends your turn because you have to rest. To take the rest action, you either have to play the card with the corresponding symbol. Let me show you the bigger version of that symbol, it looks like this. Or when you establish your new pirate haven, or if you are located in the territory with your pirate haven, you may spend 1 reputation and take a rest. When you establish the pirate haven, you don't have to pay that reputation to take the rest. And you may even rest in pirate heavens of other players, again provided that you are in that territory, and pay 1 reputation. When you rest, you may discard any number of bloodshed tokens. These are your wounds and they may get you captured. If you have any friendly ship tokens face down, you may flip them face up. And then you may take 1 random card from your discard pile and add it to your hand. With the Declare INFAMY action, you will acquire new elite cards. You can only do that if you are in a territory with any player's pirate haven or any land site with a pirate's marker. And you can only do that if you already increased your command statistics, because at the start of the game you may have 0 elite cards. With certain game effects you can have 1, 2 or more. So let's say in our example it will be 2. And in order to acquire the elite card, you need 3 infamy points. You can discard any elite card in your hand to get 1 infamy point. And you can also discard land tokens and ship tokens you have already defeated earlier in the game that have this combat modifier symbol, that's this green and red banner. Every time you defeat these tokens in combat, you can keep them next to your pirate board, and now for each token you discard or return back to the general supply, you gain 1 infamy point. You return these tokens back to their respective stacks, and for every 3 infamy points you spend, you may acquire a new elite card. It goes directly into your discard pile, and immediately refresh the cards in the elite den. If you have enough infamy points and you can acquire 2 or more elite cards, choose one of the cards, then immediately refresh the display, then you can acquire additional cards. When you don't want to take any more actions on your turn, or you don't have any other cards, or you have decided to take rest, your turn ends. Discard all the cards to your discard pile, draw the cards back to your hand limit from your draw deck, and reset your movement points. The starting value is 3 movement points, plus any potential movement points from the ship statistics. That closes your turn, and it's the turn of the next player in a clockwise direction. Anytime the commander, the first player, has to draw the cards from the draw pile and the draw deck is empty, that triggers the end of the round. Do not reshuffle the discard pile to draw additional cards. This simply triggers the end of the round. All remaining players take 1 more turn, and then the action phase is over and proceed to the cleanup phase. During the cleanup phase, take all the cards from your hand and put them into the discard pile, then shuffle the discard pile to create the new draw deck. Reset your movement points back to 3 plus any value from the ship statistics. Discard the current Tidings card to the Tidings cards discard pile. Discard all the elite cards and crew cards by putting them to the bottom of the corresponding deck, and then draw the 3 new cards face up from both decks. And finally, if there are 5 or less ship tokens on the board, spawn new ship tokens by drawing the Tidings card and using the same method as during the setup. So take the Tidings card and in the territory shown on the card, place 2 ship tokens to that territory and also to every adjacent territory. Then move the first player token to the player with the fewest number of victory points with the lowest swagger. If there is a tie, the active current first player decides, and that's the end of the round. In this chapter, we will look at how combat works. The combat resolution depends on whether you have or you don't have the initiative. The initiative has this symbol in the game, and as this symbology indicates, when you start the game as pirate level 1, you don't have any initiative. When you increase your level to level 2, you gain initiative against the merchant ships, those are these green ships. When you reach the level 3, you gain the initiative against ports, so those are these spaces on the map. With level 4, you gain initiative against pirate ships. Those are these kind of ship tokens. With level 5, you get initiative against naval ships. Those are the blue ships. And upon reaching the level 6, you gain the initiative against pirate hunters and against forts. Forts are these tokens. Having initiative allows you to strike first at enemy and win combat more easily. If you don't have the initiative, then the enemy strikes first at you and you have to defend. So let me first explain the combat when you have the initiative, and then I'll explain what happens when you don't have the initiative. Before we start, let me show you these 3 important combat icons that you will see on cards and ship tokens. This icon represents the broadside attack, this one the close quarters attack, and this one the strike fear attack. And again, here's the icon for the initiative. So, when you have the initiative, you can strike first using the broadside attack or strike fear attack. To generate the strike fear attack, either use the cards or your reputation tokens. For each reputation token you spend, you generate 1 point of strike fear attack. When you play the card, generate the attack based on the value on that card. In this example, it would be 3. When you strike first with the strike fear attack, compare your strike fear attack against the close combat attack of the enemy token. Here, the close quarters combat value is 1. So if you generate at least 1 strike fear attack, you win the combat immediately. Instead of striking first with the strike fear attack, you can strike first using the broadside attack. You can only generate that attack by playing cards. In this example, you generate 2 broadside attack. But now you have to compare your broadside attack value with the enemy token broadside attack value. If your broadside attack is equal or higher than the enemy broadside attack, you immediately win the combat. In our example, this 2 broadside attack is not enough. We would have to play another card which generates additional 2 points of broadside attack, and 2 plus 2 is 4. That's enough to win the combat. If your broadside attack is less than the enemy broadside strength, but it's at least half that value, so in our example, if your broadside attack is at least 2, but not 4, let's say we only play this card generating 2 strength of the broadside attack, then take the Bloodshed token, this represents your wound, and then you can either flee or continue to the close quarters combat. When you decide to flee, simply move your ship to any adjacent territory without any aggressive tokens. If you decide to continue with the close quarters attack, play cards that generate this close quarters attack and add that value to the broadside attack that you generated in the first step. So in this extreme example, we have the close quarters strength of 3, broadside attack strength 2. That's a total strength of 5. And if that total strength is equal or higher than the close quarters strength of the enemy token, you win the combat. Finally, if your broadside attack strength is less than half of the broadside attack strength of the enemy, then you are captured. So in this example, if your broadside attack strength would be 1 or 0, you would be captured. I will explain how that works in a minute. Now let's take a look at another example, and let's say the player has the initiative against this pirate ship. First of all, the closed quarters strength is 5. So if the player is able to generate strike fear attack with a strength of 5 or more, then that player can win using the first strike attack. In this example, we have one card that generates the strike fear attack with a strength of 3, this one with a strength of 2, so these two cards together would generate the strike fear attack with a strength of 5, which is enough to win against that pirate ship. Another way how to win using the first strike is to generate the broadside attack with the strength of 6 or more. So, for example, using this card, which generates the broadside attack with a strength of 2, and this one, but this time we have to spend 1 reputation token, and that generates the broadside attack with a strength of 4. That is 6 in total, which is enough to win. In another example, I could use this card to generate the 2 strength of the broadside attack together with this one. These two values are 1 plus 2, that is broadside attack with a strength of 3, which is at least half of the broadside attack strength of the enemy pirate ship, which means I'm not able to win using the first strike, so I need to take the Bloodshed token because I'm injured. But now we have the broadside attack strength of 3, plus the close quarters combat strength of additional 3 points, and that is 6 in total. 6 is more than 5 of the close combat strength of the enemy token, which means I win this combat. Now if you don't have the initiative, then the enemy strikes first, using the broadside attack. In order to defend, you have to take evasive movements and not your guns. If you generate the movement points equal or higher than the enemy broadside attack strength, then you don't take any bloodshed tokens and you may flee or proceed to the close quarters combat. You can use your existing movement points, you can generate more by playing cards or improved effects on the cards. So for example, we can use the 4 movement points here and 2 movement points from this card, but that costs a reputation token. Now you can either flee or, as I said, you can proceed to the close quarters stage. If you generate movement points equal to the half of that broadside attack strength or more, but not full amount, so in this example it would be 3, 4 or 5 movement points, then you take the bloodshed token, and again you may either flee or proceed to the close quarters combat. If you generate the movement points that is not even half of the broadside attack strength, so in this example, if you only generate 2, 1 or no movement points, then you are captured. Now let's say you spend 3 movement points here. That's half of the broadside attack strength of the enemy pirate ship. That means you take the bloodshed token, and now, when you decide to proceed to the close quarters combat, reduce the enemy's broadside attack strength by your movement points. So in our example, 6 was reduced by 3 movement points down to value 3, and add this value 3 to the close quarters combat value of their opponent. Here it's 5, and that's the total close quarters combat strength of the enemy, so it's 8. Now you have to generate the close quarters combat strength equal to 8 or more in order to win the combat. Here we have 3 plus 2 plus additional 3, that would be 8 in total, and that's enough to win the combat. If you generate less than that, then you are captured. If you win the combat, you gain all the rewards shown on the right side of the token. Here you get 5 swagger points, 5 victory points. If, for example, you beat this merchant ship, you get 2 swagger points and 1 reputation token. If you win the combat against these forts, you also get treasure cards. And if you lose the combat, you gain a bloodshed token and you must flee. If you lose against the land token, when you flee, you thematically flee from the land back to the sea, so you stay in the same territory. When you defeat the pirate ship, shuffle it to the ship token supply. If you win the combat against the slave ships, treasure fleets, pirate hunters, or these naval ships, place the defeated token face down to the bottom of the respective stack. When you defeat the merchant ship, place it face down on this matching space, and when you defeat the land token, place it face down on this matching space. In addition, take one of your pirate markers and place it on top of the nation's flag to show that it is now pirate held. However, if you defeat a ship token with this symbol or the land token with the same symbol, this green and red banner, keep them near your player board because you will need them to acquire the elite cards. Once you spend them to acquire the elite cards, place them in this area using the rules I have just described. So for example, land tokens here, naval ships to the bottom of the corresponding stack. Now, as this table indicates, as soon as 5 merchant ships are sunk, take the top naval ship token from the stack, draw the Tidings card, and place that naval ship token in the territory shown on the card and place the token face down. Take those 5 merchant ship tokens and shuffle them into the ship tokens supply and make sure you mix them well, and then discard the Tidings card. Similarly, when 2 land tokens are defeated, the top pirate hunter ship token enters the play in the same way as the naval ship token from the previous example. The land tokens are shuffled into the land token supply. When the treasure fleet token is defeated, put it to the bottom of the corresponding deck and draw 2 random ship tokens from the ship token supply and place them face down in Havana. And similarly, when you defeat the slave ship or when you rescue the slave ship, Draw the Tidings card and place the Pirate Hunter token in that territory. If there are multiple tokens in the same territory, choose the first token to combat, and after you win the combat against that token, you have to combat the second token as well, but this time the second token has the initiative regardless of your pirate level. If you win the combat against the first token and you gain the rewards, if you flee from the combat with the second token, you can only keep the swagger points as the reward from the first combat. You don't get to keep any additional rewards. I already talked about tokens with this modifier symbol here, this green and red banner. If you combat such tokens, either a ship token or the land token, immediately after initiating the combat, draw the Tidings card and apply the modifier from that card based on the green or, in this example, the red symbol at the bottom of the card. The green modifiers help the player, red modifiers are applied to the enemy tokens. After the combat is resolved, discard the Tidings card. Once per turn, you may ask another player to join you in combat to form a company. You have to do this before you start resolving the combat. The player joining your company must be in the same territory as you or in any adjacent territory. You must agree on the amount of swagger and other rewards to give the assisting player if you win the combat. The deal is binding, and the assisting player may provide either one card from their hand for the sake of resolving the combat, or a friendly ship token. I'll come to these friendly ship tokens later in the video. After the combat, return the card provided to the discard pile of that player, or the friendly ship token is flipped face down and it stays in front of the assisting player. And when the assisting player starts their turn, the card they have provided is in the discard pile, which means that player starts their turn with one card less, and they cannot redraw back to the hand limit at the start of their turn. On the other hand, the assisting player doesn't get any bloodshed tokens due to this company combat. Over the course of the game, you may acquire crew cards. Those are cards with this symbol, and if you use them during the combat, they remain in play for the entire turn, which means you can use the effect of the card in multiple combats during the same turn. So if you engage, for example, in two different combats during the same turn, you may use the same card once in each combat, because you can use it in both combats. Other cards, like the captain cards, are only one-time use cards and then they are discarded. Crew cards remain in play for the duration of the entire turn. Elite cards are even more powerful than the crew cards. They have the basic effect and the improved effect the same as the captain cards. You activate the improved effect by paying the reputation token, or if you have the crew card, you can play the elite card for the improved effect without spending that reputation token. To do that, simply play the elite card and turn the crew card 90 degrees to indicate that it has been used to boost the elite card, and the crew card can still be played for its standard effect, and the reason for rotating the card is to indicate that the crew card has been used to boost the elite card. One crew card can boost one elite card per turn. So for example, if I wanted to use the second elite card for the improved effect, if I have another crew card in play, I can rotate it by 90 degrees to indicate that it has been used to boost another elite card. If you win the combat and you get this icon as the reward, that indicates the treasure card. Treasure cards are the most powerful cards in the game. When you acquire a treasure card, it's never part of your pirate deck. Place it face up in your play area, and you can use its effect anytime during the game, and when you do, the card is permanently removed from the game. This is the only type of card which is removed from the game after play. And finally, let's get back to these bloodshed tokens. They represent wounds from combat. When you take the bloodshed token, place it next to your pirate board. When you take the first one, nothing really happens. There are some game effects which allow you to get rid of this bloodshed token, but when you take the second one, you get captured. You may also get captured by another type of game effect. without having the 2 bloodshed tokens. And when you get captured, follow this procedure. First, if you are engaged in combat, immediately end the combat. Then move your ship either to your pirate haven or to Nassau or any other neutral site without the pirate markers. Then place your ship on the side to indicate that you are captured. If you have any treasure cards, immediately remove them from the game. Remove the bloodshed tokens, move your swagger marker down to the start of the current level. So if you are at level 5, move your marker down to 60 swagger points. And since you are captured, your action phase is over. You may no longer take any turns during this action phase. And only at the start of the next round, place your ship upright, and then you can resume your turns as usual. There are a few additional rules that we need to cover, and we will start with leveling up your pirate. As the game progresses, you will earn swagger, and you will move your marker along the swagger track. If you earn enough swagger to level up, as indicated on the swagger track, you level up your pirate. Here, you level up to the 2nd level. When you reach 20 swagger points, you level up to the 3rd level, and so on. Whenever you level up, you immediately gain the indicated benefits as printed on the game board. When you reach the 2nd level, you gain initiative against the merchant ships. You draw 2 cards from the captain's den. That's this deck of cards. Choose one of them to keep and put it into your discard pile, and shuffle the other one back into the deck. You also get the reward shown on the reward tile. Similarly, when you level up to the 3rd level, you get initiative against ports, your hand limit is increased to 5, and you also get additional benefits, and so on. You can find a full description of all these benefits in the rulebook. As you improve your pirate skills, you will also improve your pirate statistics. There are 3 tracks on your pirate board. This one improves your movement. The 2nd one increases the number of crew cards you can have, and the last one increases the number of elite cards you can have in your deck. Every time you gain additional movement, move your marker 1 space to the right and immediately increase your available movement for the current turn as well. And from now on, at the start of each of your turns, the number of movement points is 3 plus additional movement points from this track. So in this example, it would be 5 movement points at the start of each of your turns. When you reach the last space on this track, immediately gain a random merchant ship that joins your fleet. Draw the ship tokens from the ship token supply until you reveal the merchant ship, and place it next to your pirate board. This is now your friendly ship token. You can use it in combat. When you reach the last space on the 2nd track, immediately gain a crew card. The same applies to the last track. When you reach the last space, immediately gain an elite card. And when you reach the last space with all 3 markers, gain a pirate ship. It also joins your fleet. And you also gain a permanent +3 strike fear ability. The way you have to increase your pirate stats is to achieve these accomplishments shown at the bottom of your pirate board. Anytime you achieve one of these accomplishments, mark it with the cube and increase one of the pirate stats by 1. If you play a campaign, these accomplishments are reset to 0 at the start of every single game. Anytime you wish to discard a crew card or an elite card in order to acquire a new one, shuffle the discarded card into the corresponding deck of cards, and you can do it anytime on your turn from your pirate deck, then you reshuffle it, or from your hand, or from the discard pile. You can use the friendly ship token or tokens during combat, and you can use them in the same way as your pirate cards, because these friendly ship tokens can generate broadside attack or the close quarters combat attack. When you do, play the token face up in front of you and then flip it face down. It cannot be used again this turn. You can flip it back when you rest or at the start of the next round. When any player reaches 120 victory points, 120 swagger, the game ends immediately. All players adjust their scores for any personal missions not completed, and then the player with the most swagger wins the game. If any player completes at least one personal mission, and also the global mission, then all players gain one more turn, including the player who triggered the end of the game. Adjust the score for any not completed personal missions, and then the player with the most points is the winner. If you play the campaign, then the winner decides on the next mission based on the outcome of the current mission. So that's how you play the Pirate Republic Africa Gambit. The game also comes with a campaign mode and a solo mode. You can find these additional rules in the rulebook. If you have any questions or comments, I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. If you like the series, please subscribe. You can support the channel on the Patreon page. You've been watching Game in a Nutshell. My name is Branislav Berec and hope to see you next time.